I'm gonna call this order as the recording started, John.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Would you please call the roll?
Director Ellis.
Here.
Director Ewald.
Here.
Director Urbanbach.
Here.
Director Carey.
Here.
Director Graves.
Here.
President Esman.
Here. For being present, this meeting is called to order. The normally we do have a smaller crowd and we do introduction of guests. But we are having a public hearing tonight. And I want to allow maximum amount of time for us to have hear from the public. So I'm going to dispense with introductions tonight, and you can introduce yourselves when you come up to speak. If you would like to speak, we do ask that you, for the record, sign in the sign-in sheet. And then when you stand up, please spell your last name in case we can't read your writing on the sign-in sheet. And that way our records will be correct and respect the correct spelling of your name. So thank you very much. We're going to follow the normal order of business, and the next item on the agenda, item number 4, is my remarks on the conduct of the meeting. The under Montana open meeting laws, we provide an opportunity for the public to be heard on items that are not on our agenda. We normally do that.
Please.
I'm sorry. We normally we provide an opportunity for members of the public under Montana law to speak prior to the meeting on items that are not on tonight's agenda. That opportunity is coming up next. We will, if it is on the agenda, we would ask you to hold your remarks until we get to that point of the agenda for your remarks. We would ask you to come up to the podium, identify yourself, spell your last name, and then we'll allow comments. We've got about 50 people in attendance tonight. So if we go 2 minutes times 50, that's 100 minutes. If we do 3 minutes times 50, it's 150. So I'm gonna elect to go 2 minutes tonight. I know that's short, but we ask that you keep your remarks brief. Right, if somebody has made the same point before, please avoid repeating them. We want to be respectful of your time, the board members' time. We are all volunteers. We get $100 a month for our service, and we're here to serve the members of the public, and that is you. So with that, we will go to item number 4 or item number 5, and that is there any public comment to the board on non-agenda items? If not, we'll skip that. And then we will go to item number 7, approval of the agenda. And I have a motion from one of the directors.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as is. I'll second that.
Sure. Motion to approve the agenda by Ewald, seconded by Carey. Is there discussion? Being none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay. Agenda is adopted. Item number 8, new business. We'll go to item number 8A. Before we begin the public hearings, you will first have a presentation on the proposed water rates from Chris Gonzalez, who was hired to prepare alternatives for our consideration. Mr. Gonzalez.
All right, hello everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm going to go over a presentation, kind of explaining the rate study process, kind of the key assumptions, and the outcomes or the findings, and then ultimately the recommendations. Blaine, we can move on to the next slide. So there are really three parts here. The first part is kind of the setup, kind of give you that background, the goals and the overall layout of the process. The second phase of the presentation will be focusing on the revenue requirement forecast or the financial plan. And then the third phase will be focusing on the rate structure analysis, because we were asked to develop some alternative rate structures. Next slide, please. So like utilities in general, the district has a variety of challenges that it has to meet. There's a bunch of infrastructure, both in the ground and above the ground, and the district has to repair and replace those facilities over time, and has to plan for that in the same way that, you know, on a personal level, you might have a 401k because you have retirement and retirement expenses. So there's kind of parallel there to have that challenge. There's evolving regulatory requirements. The state or federal authorities will say, here's a pollutant that we need to get below certain detection levels, and there are a bunch of investments suddenly that are required to do that. So that kind of stuff. Incentivizing affordable housing, I mean, that has been across the industry a major driver of policy discussions about how do we charge people, make sure that we're charging fairly and recognizing the different types of housing that are popping up just in the interest of providing more housing options to people. Investing in new infrastructure to accommodate growth. Ultimately, the system can serve so many customers, and if you continue to grow, you need to get additional supply. You need to have a larger main so that you can get the water to people, things like that. As the rates go up, there is also talk of customer assistance programs, and recognizing that a high utility bill does impose a burden on fixed income, lower income residents. There is often pressure to consider or expand an assistance program. Overlaying everything is maintaining service quality and reliability. I mean, we can keep rates low, but at the end of the day, if the water comes out of the faucet and it's brown, or you are told you have to boil it, like, there's not a whole lot of thanks that are going to be in order. I mean, ultimately, there is an expectation that the water is clean, it's safe, and it's reliable. And with everything else, that is an expectation and something that the district ultimately has to meet. The finance people for the district like the idea of preserving revenue stability, because utilities have lots of fixed costs. So there's a lot of costs associated with having infrastructure in the ground, having people at the office, picking up the phone, all those sorts of things. And so to the extent that you can bring in enough money to pay salaries and benefits and things like that, and just because you had a bad sales year doesn't mean that you're not paying your bills, and there's definitely an interest in that. And then obtaining support from the public and decision makers about rates and charges. And ultimately, the district has to do all of this within its financial constraints and staffing constraints. Let's move on to the next slide. So to provide some background for rate making in Montana, section 7-13-2301 of the Montana Code requires the district to review rates annually. The amount collected has to be sufficient to cover the cost of operating, so reasonable operation and maintenance costs. Principal and interest payments on debt that the district has to pay for facilities. Administrative costs of running the district as an organization. If there are policies regarding reserves, if we need to raise enough money to fund those reserves, that's also part of what rates need to support. And then also regional system charges. So in this case, the city of Billings charges the district to purchase water that it then supplies to you. Yes. And so ultimately, we want to make sure that the rates in the long run are covering those costs, because that's how the district remains solvent. Let's move on to the next slide. So how do we determine rates? And so there are three main phases of a comprehensive rate study. And the one that I'm talking about, or going to talk about, actually, I'm talking about two of them tonight. The first one is the revenue requirement analysis or financial plan. That phase we forecast costs and revenues. We have a policy framework, figuring out like, how do we pay for capital costs? To what extent do we want to borrow? versus generate cash through rates to pay for, the large projects, things like that.
I have a question. Can you make that bigger?
No, sorry.
It's not legible.
Can you put it up front of the room?
Right, I think they can't see it.
Yeah, we can't turn it because the camera.
You gotta wear glasses, but I can't even read that with my glasses. I can't do that.
Okay, so I will. Okay, so there
Got
are
a few copies.
copies there.
Pass out.
Yeah, that was one, why wasn't this included in the agenda? Be printed out so we could have it.
It was.
It was. It was on our
It's in the
website.
packet. Another one.
There's two documents, the agenda and then the agenda packet. That was in the package.
Okay, so I mean, having said that, the three phases, first phase is how much money do we need? And ultimately, how much revenue does the district need to generate those foods? The second phase is how do we recover that from different?
Members of the public, I know that there's been complaints about people not being able to hear. This is very critical that they should be able to hear. I would ask that you not speak in low murmurs, and because that interferes with ability to hear the presentation, which will delay our meeting tonight. So please be respectful of the speaker and the fellow people sitting next to you. Thank you.
So the second phase, which we're actually not gonna focus on tonight, is how do we recover that cost from different classes? So single family homes and apartments and businesses and irrigators and things like that. There's a methodology in industry practices that we use to figure out what a fair share of the costs are. We're not looking at that right now, but that is something that I am in discussions with the district about a possible second phase of the project. But if we skip ahead of that, the third phase is we ultimately need to have rates and charges that recover the required amount of revenue. And so we know how much revenue we need, or we have a projection of how much we need, and then we design rates that generate that amount of revenue. And I will get into both of those phases as we go on. All right, next slide. So I think I said a lot of this already, but the first step, we want to determine a revenue requirement for fiscal year 2027. We're trying to make sure that the district is able to cover the cost of purchasing water from the city of Billings, fund additional operating needs, just kind of even status quo operations. And then also looking at some of the near-term projects that are planned, and then making sure that we have enough revenue to pay for all those things. We've looked beyond 2027, but really the action for tonight is focusing on 2027. And then developing the water rate alternative based on the city of Billings structure. There, as many of you may know, there has been a study going on about a possible consolidation of the district system into the city of Billings system. And so to help make those kinds of comparisons and looking at the impacts of that easier, the district asked us to develop an alternative, particularly for single family rates, based on the city of Billings rate structure. All right, let's go on. The financial plan, let's skip ahead one more. And so this analysis defines cost-based rates based on aggregate obligations or total needs. And so there are operating costs, there are capital projects, those big projects that the district needs to get done. There are principal and interest payments on outstanding bonds, and then any other financial needs like reserve funding, things like that. We want to establish a multi-year plan beyond the current budget cycle because ultimately we want to make sure that we are paying attention to the overall direction that we're going financially. We don't want to say, okay, we need this % rate increase here and then not anticipate something, 3 or 4 years down the road. And then, we get there and we have to jump rates up, 20, 30, 40%, or more. I mean, there are times when we can't avoid it. I know there's irony, yes, spoiler alert, we're talking about that. But to the extent that we can plan for something, we can ramp up over time. And we can get there, in a more moderate way. Rather than saying, no rate increase for 10 years and now rates have to double, because it's really hard to, absorb those kind of things. And I definitely understand. I've given lots of these presentations before. So the elements here we define we project revenues, expenses, come up with a plan to fund the projects and, kind of overlay our recommended financial policies. And, I know you're not gonna be able to read these things, but I'll kind of go into each one of the boxes as to what these things are covering. The blue box is talking about, customer growth. So ultimately, we're projecting revenues and some expenses. We need to make assumptions about how many new connections the district is going to add each year. And so based on, planning assumptions that have already been in place, we're assuming 1% annual growth, which is about 60 to 65 new connections per year. We have assumed 0.5% of growth in water demand. So, as efficient fixtures are more commonly available, as customers keep getting the message to conserve, demands have not historically grown at the same rate as the number of customers have grown. And so, by planning for this, we are being more conservative because we want to make sure that we're not overstating the revenue the district gets, because then that will set them up to under collect. The orange box is the baseline revenue forecast. We looked at 2025 actuals and we applied the 2026 the current rate schedule to that. And we ended up with a projection of about $6.2 million per year of revenue from water rates. And that is the district's main source of revenue. There are some other revenues, fire line charges at about $80,000 per year. Other revenues about $55,000 per year. But you can see those numbers are pretty small compared to 6.2 million. The light green box on the top row is the operating expense forecast. This is based on the 2027 budget that staff prepared. Water purchases are about 4.8 million. All the district's other operating costs are 2.2 million. So I think this sets the stage. The cost of purchasing water is a major expense for the district. It's roughly 60% of the annual, especially after the increase that the city of Billings has put on the district. Down on the bottom row, the dark green box, expense inflation. We're assuming that most costs go up by general, kind of consumer price index inflation at 3.5% per year. That is a long-term average inflation, and we try to make sure that the district is planning for reasonable increases in other costs. We confirm with staff labor costs going up to 5% per year. I think that is, cost of living adjustments, but also benefits costs go up at rates that are much higher than general inflation. And so that's kind of an aggregate, kind of weighted average roughly up, the total cost of salaries and benefits. And then wholesale rate increases from the city of Billings. We are, so the increase for 2027 is 28.4%. That's the increase that the city is imposing on the district. Looking beyond 2027, that we're projecting an 18% increase in 2028, a 5% increase in 2029, and then 7.5% per year after that. So those water purchase costs, in addition to being a significant portion of the annual cost, is going to continue to rise at rates above inflation. And this is something the district, for the most part, doesn't have a whole lot of say on. It's passing on costs that it is bearing to acquire the water that it sells to. Debt service. There are 3 bonds with a total payment of about $367,000 per year. There are certain requirements that the district has to meet as a condition of the bonds. And so we are planning to not only cover the payments, but also meet those other requirements. And then for reserves, we have recommended the district have a minimum operating reserve of 90 days of operating expenses. That's common in the industry, especially for water utilities, where the revenues are really concentrated to when the water is being used, but the expenses don't fit that same pattern. I mean, the water purchases do, but a lot of the other ones like salaries and repairs and maintenance and things like that, those are more consistent throughout the year. So we want to make sure that the district has enough money to pay for the bills when they come up. And then based on the 2027 budget, that's about $543,000, kind of a minimum reserve. We also are maintaining a capital reserve of $1.5 million. That sounds like a lot of money until we look at the kinds of expenditures, the cost of replacing a tank or the cost of replacing a mile of pipe. it's not all that much money. I mean, it gets you, if you have an emergency main replacement, you might get to cover a chunk of that with that money. It's not intended to cover everything that can go wrong. It's just, we want to make sure that we have enough of a reserve to help smooth the impacts of whatever sort of unforeseen thing happens. But not going overkill with the amount of money that we have in the bank. All right, let's go on to the next slide. This is a capital project list, and this is for planning purposes only. Some of these projects have not been formally adopted by the board yet, but I mean, for the purpose of the financial strategy, we need to make an assumption about what the district may fund. And so, 2026, there are mostly, about $544,000 being spent on kind of a variety of mid-sized projects, like some water line repairs, some engineering studies, things like that. Next year, we're looking at another connection with the city, supply connection for about $1 million. A line replacement on East Waste Lane, another $1 million, and then the big one is the replacement of the Main Street transmission line. And the current estimates of that cost are about $12.5 million. And we have that cost spread over 2 years. So basically 2027, 2028, fairly even in the distribution. And then beyond that, we're assuming we have a placeholder for $1 million a year in kind of current dollars for ongoing main and infrastructure replacements. And talking with the board a couple of times on this now, there are concerns that $1 million a year is not going to be adequate. The district is in the process of developing more refined capital project. So those costs may go up, but we need to have something. And there's going to ultimately be some tolerance of what are the rate increases that the district can bear. And then that will define to some extent, once you take out the operating costs and the debt payments, how much is available to invest in the system. There is some, there may be some ability for the district to phase projects in and spread it out. But I mean, at some point, when you have aging infrastructure that's leaking and failing, you will run to a point where you can't necessarily push things out. And so that's ultimately what we want to be ready to. Let's move on to the next slide. And so here, what the blue bar chart is showing is kind of the pattern of the expenditures over the next 5 years. And so the majority of them, and it's really tied to that Main Street transmission line replacement, are in 2027 and 2028. Including inflation, we're projecting the district is going to spend about $19.1 million over the next 5 years. And then we look at, well, how is the district going to pay for that? The orange section of the pie chart on the right, that is a bond that the district is going to issue to pay for that Main Street replacement project. There's no way the district is going to generate $12 million in cash up front. And arguably it should. I mean, that's a facility that future growth is going to benefit from. And we want to make sure that we spread the cost of that investment over the lifetime and over the customers that will ultimately benefit from it. The blue part of the pie chart is cash. And that's going to be a combination of contributions from rates, that rates fund, system development fees that new connections pay, existing reserves, interest earnings, and other revenues in the system. And so that we're projecting on that 19 million, about 7 million is going to be coming from cash over the next 5 years. I will say that orange part of the pie chart is going to, we're expecting it's going to increase annual debt service by about $770,000. So that's a payment that doesn't currently exist that we're going to pile on top of everything that's already in terms of the annual expense. Let's move on to the next slide. So this is the revenue requirement forecast. What the column, the bar chart is showing are the components. And so the blue part are the operating expenses. And that is water purchases as well as employee salaries, insurance, and all the things that are run in the district. There is an orange part above the blue, that is debt service. And so you can sort of see, and once you get, look at a closer copy of the graph, it'll become easier to see. But it gets bigger in 2027 with that new debt service for that Main Street replacement project. And then ultimately, there is some debt that drops off, and there is some capacity toward the later end of the period, where we're generating additional cash for capital. But what we're showing is for 2027, a revenue increase of 24%. And 12% in 2028, 11% in 2029, and 9% in 2030. 28 through 30, those are just projections right now. The main point is being transparent that it's not like this is gonna be a one and done thing, like the board approves 24% and we march into the sunset and everything is paid for. There's a bunch of stuff coming and we're trying to spread it out as much as we can. The challenge here is, I mean, the city's 28.4% increase, that's increasing the water purchase cost by about $1 million a year. And then we have the $770,000 from that new bond on top of that. So we're looking at almost, $2 million a year of new costs, and the annual revenue is a little bit over $6 million. And so it's like, there are some reserves, and the district can burn them down to cover those costs in the near term, but at some point, the district is gonna have to raise revenues if it's gonna meet those things. And that's just the way it is. All right. And just for disclosure, there are two lines on the graph. The bottom solid line is revenue at existing rates. You can see that, I mean, it's not even gonna cover operating expenses, much less anything else. And then the dashed line that's higher, that's showing with the proposed and projected revenue increases, what the revenue levels will be. And it shows that we're not generating a massive surplus here. We're covering the needs as we understand them. All right, let's move on to the next slide. This graph is showing a forecast of the district's fund balance. And so right now, the district has roughly $9 million in the bank. There'll be a bit of a jump in 2027 as the bond proceeds come in, but you can see by 2028, we spend that and more on the capital projects and the Main Street transmission line replacement. And then beyond 2028, we're trying to keep the balance between 5 and 6 million, kind of combine operating and capital. The reason that it is higher than what I talked about before is because of uncertainty around the capital plan. And so I think ultimately, once those projects are better defined, like the ongoing replacement projects, we can manage the reserves to that recommended policy level. But I mean, the recommended policy level is somewhere around 2 million. So we have a little bit of a cushion. And like I said, even if we look at, the $1 million a year, I was assuming for infrastructure replacement, if we say that's $2 million a year, then that's another $3 million that we get drawn down. And then we're right at that $2 million. So my point being, there's a little bit of a cushion because of the uncertainty, but it's not going to last long in the face of the costs that are coming. All right. So onto the rate structure analysis. Just a little bit of information about the customer base profile. The pie chart on the left is going into the number of service connections, and the blue is single family. It's the majority of the connections and about 91% of your total connections. Non-residential, including multifamily, commercial, things like that, are about 7% of your connections. And then the remaining, I guess that works out to just over 2%. There are 6 bulk water users, a handful of irrigation users, and private fire lines. The middle pie chart is showing the distribution of water consumption. And so single family is 91% of your accounts almost, but they're only about 64% of the usage. So the multifamily commercial, they're about 27% of the annual consumption. So they use much more water per customer than a single family home does. Irrigation is about 6% of your annual demand, and is concentrated almost exclusively during the summer months. And so thinking about how the system is designed to meet a certain peak demand, almost all that demand is directly piling onto what the district needs to provide at peak. And then surprisingly or not surprisingly, the pie chart on the right is projected revenue for 2027, and it follows the consumption profile fairly well. And that is in part because the district's existing rate structure recovers only about 29% of the cost through the meter charge. And the remaining 71% is recovered through usage charges. So if you use more water, you pay more. If you use less, you pay less. And so obviously it makes sense there in the consumption profile would then define kind of what the revenue looks like. Because we didn't get into allocating costs between customer classes, what we did instead is we said, okay, what is the existing revenue distribution? You know, what is single family paying compared to multifamily and commercial, compared to irrigation and so forth. And we said, we're not gonna mess with that balance right now. We wanna keep, try to adjust everything proportionate to what is happening with the existing structure. And so if you go on to the next slide, please. The monthly meter charge, all we've done here is we've increased the existing meter charges by 24%. That was the annual revenue increase that we needed for 27. And with the district's kind of historical practices, we round that to the nearest 10 cents. And then ultimately the usage charges, we adjust so that we collect the correct amount of revenue. Let's move on to the residential usage charges. So I said earlier that, we try to develop an alternative based on the city of Billings rate structure. And that's what we've done. So what we're looking at here is the column on the left are fiscal year 2026. The 5 tiers are 0 to 4,000 gallons. You're paying $3.66 per 1,000 gallons. For 4,001 to 20,000 gallons, you're paying $5.46 per 1,000 gallons. 20,001 to 40,000 gallons, you're paying $7.99 per 1,000. 40,001 to 75,000 gallons, you're paying $10.69 per 1,000. And then anything over 75,000 gallons, you're paying $11.37 per 1,000. The 2027 proposed structure is we are mirroring kind of what the city of Billings does in terms of the tiers and also the relative differentials in the how the rates themselves increase with the tiers. So under the proposed structure, we'd be paying $5.91 per 1,000 gallons for the first 10,000 gallons. You would pay $7.07 for basically the next 22,000 gallons, getting to 32,000 gallons. Usage between 32,001 and 75,000 gallons, you'd be paying $9.19 per 1,000. And then anything over 75,000 gallons, you'd be paying $13.80 per 1,000.
So Chris,
Yes.
one thing I wanted to emphasize here is some people looked at like the 0 to 4,000. It's more than the 24. The idea is the whole thing averages at 24 in this range when you did it, but because we're changing tiers.
Yes.
Is why some people's usage would be a little higher than 24 and some people would be a little lower depending on where they fall.
And so to build on that, that concept, maybe explain a little bit differently. So let's say that you use 4,000 gallons. Under the existing structure, you pay that, existing base charge, and then you pay $3.66 per 1,000 for the 4,000 gallons. Under the revised structure, you pay, the existing meter charge plus 24%. And then for the usage charge, you're gonna pay $5.91 per 1,000 for that 4,000, because that's gonna include the first 10,000 gallons. And so, to Blaine's point, the increase that a customer using 4,000 gallons sees, might be more than 24% because of that rate structure change. The shift in the tiers affects how different customers pay depending on how much water they use. So that is a good thing to know. And so if we go on to the next slide, what this is showing, the bar chart is showing the distribution of bills based on 2025 water consumption data from the district. And, most of them are concentrated, in that kind of, 2,000 to 4,000 gallons, per bill, per month. There are less, as you get up to the higher usage levels, you see fewer and fewer bills at that level, and most of those bills would be during the summer months. But in general, what we would see is the customers at the lowest usage levels are going to see a higher percentage increase, but also keeping in mind, there are only so many dollars increase, if you're going from, $3.66 to $5.91 per 1,000 for 4,000. It's a matter of a few dollars where the dollar impacts get bigger as you use more water. But yeah, so depending on how you look at it, if it's a percentage of the bill or if it's a dollar impact, you might get different things depending on which other thing you focus on. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, when we make a rate structure change, there are going to be people who benefit, and there'll be people who have to pay more as a result of that change. And there's pretty much no way around that, unfortunately. Let's move on to the next slide. And so what this shows is how the district's rates, for a typical customer using 4,000 gallons. Under the existing rates, they would pay $34.34 per month. If we were to just increase the existing rates by 24%. You'd be paying $42.62 next year instead of $34.34. If we, based on the proposed structure with the city's tiers, that same customer would pay $48.14. So it would cost them, somewhere almost $6 a month more at that usage level. So that's kind of what Blaine was getting at. Having said that, you're within the realm of what other communities are charging. And even with that increase, there are still several in this comparison alone, that are, paying more than you would here. Don't know if that makes you feel better, but I mean, the biggest thing is the district's rates are not out of line with what other systems are charging. Which is important, because when we get to rate making and we get to, if it were ever challenged legally. One of the standards that would apply is, are the district's rates arbitrary or capricious? And I mean, the analysis I just laid out, it's rooted in industry methodology. We see how the bill compares, it's, roughly the same order of magnitude. And so, this, I would argue this passes the arbitrary and capricious standard. Now, whether there are policies that can be, made differently, or rate structure modifications that could be made, there is room for that kind of stuff. But, we're trying to be reasonable and pay the district's bills. Let's move on to the next slide. And so what this table is showing, it's kind of giving some numbers behind the winners and losers concept. And so ultimately, if we look at, percent change from the 2026 bill, roughly 25% of the single family customers are going to see less of an increase than 24%. And then ultimately the other 75% will see an increase of more than 24%. I will say the majority of those customers will see an increase. Instead of 24%, it would be more like 28 or almost 29% for that first year. I think once this rate structure change is made, any subsequent adjustments would then affect everybody proportionately. It's just the disproportionate impacts are because of the rate structure change, the tiers specifically. All right, let's move on to the next slide. This is covering the other charges. What we have done for these in general, is we have increased them by the 24% to generate the required revenue. Again, trying to make sure that everybody is still paying in aggregate about what they're, the same piece of the pot. It's just a 24% larger pot. And so, the non-residential tiers, they remain the same. We did evaluate an alternative where there was a uniform volume rate, kind of like for irrigation and bulk water. For the combined, that commercial class, it works out to about $6.56 per 1,000 gallons. Instead of the tier. So that was an alternative. The board, I think, ultimately preferred to put that issue, put a pin on that issue while we're addressing everything else. And then in the phase 2 part of the project, possibly revisit. Irrigation and bulk water also going up 24%. And then the last slide here, fire line charges. And so here, reviewing the charges, they were notably higher than the city's charges, disproportionately more so than some of the other rates. And so what the board opted to express a preference of was, ultimately, we ran a scenario where we said, well, what if we impose the city of Billings rates on everyone? How much revenue would that generate, and how does that compare to the revenue that the district needs? And so what we found is the district could do the city's rates plus 55%. And so that's what we've done for fire line charges as an interim adjustment. That second phase of the project, when we're looking at how much they should pay, can include that, and will include, that element where we say, what is the cost that we allocate to fire suppression? What portion of that will we allocate to private fire lines? And then ultimately we have a cost basis to say, ultimately, this is what they should. But for now, those are the proposed charges. There's no usage charge. It's just the meter charge, and it increases with the size of the meter. And actually, they're going to see a decrease, but I mean, overall, they are a small portion of the pie. I will say that we ran the math, the revenue impact from this change is not enough to move the needle on the revenue increase for everybody else. You know, it's like, it was roughly $30,000, which, again, if we're talking about 6.3 million, increasing to something like 8 million. It's a very small portion, it was more about addressing that equity issue. At no detriment, material detriment to the other customers. So with that, that is the end of my formal presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions that are directed.
I have one question.
Would you please come to the podium and speak so you can be picked up on the microphone? And if anybody else has any questions, let's go about 6 questions. And if you've got a question, please come, to save us time, please come up right away and get them on.
Okay, Tom Roberts, at 838 West Lane, around 14. You're talking about the mainline project? Are we been able to look into the infrastructure grant money? The state revolving funds? I'm a retired maintenance chief in Miles City. And there's other grants and funds that are available through the Water Act. Have we pursued or looked at pursuing knocking that down? There are also low interest loans, there's also forgiveness loans, so.
Yes, we are in the early, I'll stand up so you can hear me better. Perhaps read my lips, I'll do that. We have begun the process of seeking a state revolving fund loan for that project. That application has been made. It is currently pending with the agency that grants those, does those grants. The engineer is our current plan right now, in order to get the loan, we have to have a capital improvement plan, which is the long-term plan for maintenance and improvements, the big ticket items. Once that's in place, then they will ask for a preliminary engineering review. And then they will go into that project by itself and say, is this the best, cheapest thing to do? You know, that's makes sense for the long term in an investment. Yeah, through those processes, other ideas may come up. The first step in that process is preparing a hydraulic water model, which maps out our system, the sizes of the pipes, where the pumps are, where the demand is. Our current hydraulic model is pretty antiquated, and our new engineer is basically going to start from scratch. So we have something that we feel is current, up to modern industry standards, and will be respected by all the agencies that have to look at it. So yes, with respect to the capital item for the second connection with the city of Billings, this board has took action to seek a congressionally directed spending grant. We are on the list for that. Back in Washington, D.C., that would be a contribution right now. It's $526,000, which would be half of that project cost. Never a guarantee of what goes on in Washington, as we all know. Things are wild back there at some points, but we have done what we can to pursue the monies that are available to us.
Can we tag on to the 150 million that Billings is doing for some of this preliminary work? Because Billings got $150 million funding for their new infrastructure things. So similar to what we did being with the state, we had a federal project or something, I would tag on to a portion of that, which would save me an estimated 25 to 35% off the total cost of the project I was looking. I'm just curious, I didn't know.
You know, we are in communication with our water supplier, which is the city of Billings. There are many ways bigger cooperation could save. For example, right now, those of you who live in the city that are served by the district for water and the city for sewer are each getting one bill for water, another one for sewer each month. You know, why is that necessary? You know, it frankly is, because they get the information on, in terms of water purchases in order for them to prepare their sewer bills. So, I mean, there are many ways we can cooperate. No door is closed. Those efforts to cooperate and save money will not, unfortunately, we can't postpone our need to pay our current bills. That's what this rate increase is about.
It's just for the future, you're looking at.
You bet.
Be able to piggyback on some of their. Thank you.
Appreciate the suggestion. Yes, sir.
Now, did you say that you're applying for grants? You have applied for grants?
Yes, we have applied for grants and our engineers are informing us of
Okay.
those opportunities. So
Okay.
we're doing what we can.
And like I said before, and just kind of piggybacking on that, I mean. State law requires the district to look at its rates regularly, and so to the extent that the district gets these grants. The news gets better in the future, and you know, obviously, anything that's collected above current needs is just reinvested in the system. What we don't wanna do is bank on getting that funding and then you don't, and then the district still has to do the project.
Melinda Nelson, 1406 Stallion Route. I am not up to speed with the explanation for what happened last year when there were millions of gallons of water was lost out. Off, was the farm that? Barrett or,
Non-revenue water from, mainline breaks, and we've solved, what, 4 of them already, or 5 of
is
them?
that not something you can easily see happen or? You don't,
We
you don't
got,
have
we got
the
a
ability
really,
to see.
we got a really sharp individual out of Bozeman. And he comes here and he's the one that found all our major leaks. The problem is with Main Street. There's so much traffic on it, they have to do it from like 10 o'clock at night till 5 in the morning.
That much water though.
Yeah, it doesn't take long when you got a 10-inch main or an 8-inch main that's tracked all the way around.
It's this,
It's-
the strata in the ground where the leak was over on Hawthorne. Was such that it is gravel. So
If this happened at
the,
my house, I would know something was going on.
well, the
But
water
I
did,
don't understand
the
how,
water did not come up,
Okay.
it went down.
but it emptied from some form or fashion, from some contained amount of water.
From the pipe, from the main line over on Hawthorne, there was a leak in it.
So I'm comparing it to my house, when I have a leak. I know, and I've called you guys before, you come right away and go, you fix
You're
it.
talking about higher bill for us from the city, yeah, that's why we're lucky.
No, I'm wondering why Heights didn't catch it. Why wasn't it?
Tell them how many
So when
miles
they-
of pipe we have.
We have, okay. We have approximately 55 miles of pipe. Much of that pipe, 155 miles, I stand corrected. Most of that pipe is in pit run. And is in saturated water. So unlike if it was in clay soil. And if you got clay soil, there's limited amount of ability of that surrounding soil to absorb that water, and if you have a leak, it will come to the surface fairly quickly. But if you're in pit run, where there's natural water appearing, most of it, we think in the Heights is probably charged by the BBWA canal leakage as it passes the district. That water seeps in and eventually weeps out where the normal groundwater exposes itself on the bench toward the river. There was a noticeable increase in the water purchases by the district in, what was it, November, December of 24?
I think it started as early as October.
of 24. Anyway. Things went up. The general manager at the time assumed the problem was with the meters of the cities. That effort to get that meter checked ended up screwing around for 5-6 months. And when the meter was finally verified, it was verified that they were undercharging us by 8%, not overcharging us. So then this board passed special emergency, we passed emergency appropriations to buy leak detection equipment, which has been provided to our staff. And we provided further funds for testing by a firm that comes in and listens to the pipes and listens for leaks. And we provided further funds for the gentleman from Belgrade. So that effort has been responsible. There are, we've got a bunch of 20-year-old water meters now. And there are new water meters that we may be looking at investing in that are so sensitive they can actually measure the pressure differences between two neighboring houses. And that could, for example, help us locate a leak. The average community water system in the United States loses 16% of its water. The non-revenue water that they produce and put into the pipe, 16% of it is gone before it hits the meters. That's the national average. We're over that. We have more work to do. We've been taking prudent steps to do that. But thank you for the question.
Back to, I'm trying to understand, back to the times that I have had overusage. I've had the Heights call me and say, do you know that you're over, maybe you've been overwatering, or wanted to let you know maybe you have a leak. You can do that for me, but who was responsible for making sure we had equipment that could catch a leak like this? Was it the previous board? And you guys have since had, was it elections were in 2024?
25.
Yeah, 21, 23, 25.
Is it just something this is just inevitable to happen? We're gonna all have to pay now additional for this? Because we didn't have this in place.
I'll let one of the other directors respond.
So we didn't have a big change in non-revenue water until probably November in 24. And then it just shot up really a lot. And the first leak they found was on Hawthorne. It was a washed out coupling with a AC pipe. And then we got Kevin from Bozeman to come, and he's so accurate. When he reads it, he'll put an X on the street and it'll be right directly below that X he paints on the street. So the first one was at Don's gas station down here. And then 2 months later, there was another one like 150 yards south of that on the same main. And then like in November, I think it was, there was one like 150 yards north of it on the same main. And he was the one that, the north one, I think, came to the surface, so he didn't help find that one, but he found the other two for us. And then he found one down, or two of them down by McDonald's on the other end of Main Street.
Are you talking about new equipment to
This is the professional, that's what he does. And he
why don't we have a system like calling me to say my water is above the average use?
So where were your leaks? Were they in the sprinkler system, or where were your leaks?
There's no leaks, I just watered more than I usually do.
Okay, so there was no leaks. This is that pit run that Jeff was talking about, or Director Esman. And so-
Jeff asked Mr. Esman talked about, we bought after the fact, we bought some kind of mechanism to be able to find water loss when it happens.
And we've got
We
three
did not
different,
have that before.
right,
That's what I'm talking about.
so we got proactive and we started doing something about it, but we didn't have all that non-revenue water loss prior to that.
I don't know. Somebody wasn't on the ball, I think.
We're gonna have 3 more questions, then we're gonna go to the hearing. Please come on up if you have a question.
Speaking of these faces, are you, who are answering the questions? Stand up, it's hard to hear back here.
I will-
Thank you,
I will have everyone do that, ma'am. Thank you.
thank you.
We want to accommodate people. Okay, further questions, please come up.
Mine is simple and short. Do you guys, on your, my name's Carl Miller, I live at 451 Saher Drive, but I own property down in your Reynolds and stuff. On your water lines and stuff, does it fluctuate quite a little from month to month? This is what I want to know. Can you give me an answer on that? Or what do you carry your water pressure at?
It triples in the summer. From the
Okay,
winter.
you boost it up in the summer.
Yeah, our people irrigate and our production goes way up and a lot of people are, I mean, they're at the 4,000, 2 to 4,000 and then they almost triple their rate. And that's a taxing on the system and that's part of the issue we have to look at it because we have to build the system for the maximum capacity that people have.
Do you know what you usually carry it at on most of your lines?
Yeah, we have a curve and we watched what it is last year and what it is this year. For the month. Yeah, because an average doesn't work because our system goes way up. Triples in our usage and our purchase of water from the city of Billings triples. In the summer months and then it goes back down.
My question.
We've had good questions. Are there? Got room for 2 more. If not, we'll go to the public hearing portion. We're gonna, because we have 50, yes, you have a question, sir?
We've found 621 Agate Avenue. It's HOUGHT line. My question is in light of the potential.
Speak up, please.
Sorry. In light of the potential future consolidation, I'm just interested in if we've had any feedback from the city on whether we need to have completed these capital projects or we're gonna end up having to have a different rate here if we did consolidate with the city for them to cover those projects later. How, I don't know what that looks like, but what is the interaction of these big capital projects with the consolidation study?
I'll let the head of that committee speak to that question. Director Law.
Okay, we've been going on that for almost 2 years now. And the city right now, they don't have a public works director and the city manager left. And so we got a report back with a bunch of numbers. And so the next step that we're in is the negotiations. And so we've been at the table 2 times negotiating and then people start leaving from the city. And then our CIP was so skewed that we've got another engineering firm working on that for us. And so we're waiting on our new CIP to find out what we're gonna go to the table with. And so we're probably looking at November before we get back to the table with them, somewhere in there.
So we don't even really know at this point.
No, it's,
They're gonna look at that. Okay.
Director, well, would you explain the acronym CIP? It's a capital improvement.
Capital improvement
capital
plan.
improvement.
You use a lot in your deals and a lot of these people don't know what the acronym is.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Couple things. This is the last question.
Jim Foley, 1736 Glen Eagles Boulevard. I've heard a lot about consolidating with Billings. I really don't know the ins and outs of that, what the advantage, what the disadvantage would be. And I just wondered, what are our rates compared to Billings rates? And are we being held a little bit politically hostage by Billings and the rates they're charging us because they want to consume us? So maybe somebody can answer some of those questions. The main thing is, what are are we lower rates than Billings?
so, no, we're, so Billings, I was on the city council one time and so I know that Billings has been charging It started at 5% for your water bill, you pay for the West End water plant. And I think it's up to 8% on your water bill now, and so they've been doing this for 10, 11 months. 10, 11 years, I mean. We haven't charged anything because the city can't bill the Heights water until that part of the project is completed. Now that's where this 28%, 28.4% is coming from. And so if you figure 5% a year, that would only been 5 years, 6 years of charging our customers to make that water up. But nobody chose to do that. And so now we're getting it all at once.
So when they do.
And excuse me, and we kind of went to the city, they didn't come to us.
And there's no alternatives on, silly question, what, is there an alternative to buy water elsewhere or get water somewhere else?
Not economically.
So the, you know, the issue is the money. You know, the water plants are, you just don't stick a pipe and run the water through sand and be able to deliver it to people. When I first moved out to Briarwood, which is in the city, that is how they were providing water to the neighbors there. But it was not good. And it's not treated and wasn't chlorinated. So that district consolidated with the city. And they have, you know, in the last few years, they replaced the water main or a water tank up on the hill behind my home. And the old tank was about 10 feet deep and silt. We have a good quality supply now. Building water plants is time consuming and very expensive. The city work has been at their project for 10 years. It's not like we could snap our finger, get it designed. There's issues whether there's of water rights available for us. Because under Montana law, anybody downstream can protest. The city has a very large water reservation. Fortunately, they got that in the early 80s, late 70s, when I was in law school studying water law. These water reservations were going on. The city of Bozeman did not expect to grow. They didn't put in for an adequate water reservation. Now they're growing and they are looking at having to go down to
Canyon
Ferry Reservoir. Pump it, what, 40, 50 miles to the city of Bozeman in order to supply their needs. So, you know, making mistakes is expensive. And you know, we have a duty to provide water to you on the 1st of July. And, you know, that's what we're here to do tonight, is try to figure out how to cover our bills so we can continue to provide water. It's gonna be painful for everyone. So now we'll go to the public hearing. So please, I would ask you to line up 3 or 4 deep at the podium so we can hear everyone's comments. I'm gonna ask Director Perry to maintain a timer for 2 minutes, limit on comments from everybody. I would ask you to come up and line up and be ready to speak. So we can, it's now 7:05, so I'd like to get through before the day is over. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Usman, my name is Nate Cabrera. I was formerly of the board of directors here. And I do agree that we have to have a ratepayer increase. And we definitely have to have that for the Heights. But on the operating costs, this district, we only have 6 workers. And our district manager makes over $100,000 and we pay you and board for it. At this point, 6 people have not seen a raise in 3 years. And they're complaining. They're saying, you know what, why give it to the overhead here rather than to the people that are actually working? I do understand they need an increase in rate. But the fact is they did not negotiate with the city. They just rolled over and said, you know what, 28% increase. Oh, yeah, we'll take that. We should have said 28%. Let's negotiate to get that down at least to 18%, 16. They didn't even try. They kept trying to go with whatever the city told them to do. And they kept talking to the people of the city, well, we'll just do whatever they have because we want to consolidate. You ask these board members that put that forward, they're looking to consolidate you guys into the city. And do you think that the city is going to keep their rates the same to the people in the heights? No way. They want to charge us for their meters. Their meters that they're using because they think ours are inadequate. When we were running this board for the last 8 years, we're $4 million above making money. And enough for the employees to get their raises and good health care. Now they're not getting their health care and they keep giving it to other people. They even put GPSs in their trucks. Can you imagine that? So you knew where they were at all times. That's all I ask.
Thank you, next speaker.
Please line up.
This is, are we on number 5?
We
We're
are,
public comment, right? I can bring it on agenda item.
no, we are on a public hearing. We are on item number 8A. Please
Sorry,
confine your
I-
comments to the agenda. Please line up, please, because we're wasting time with people waiting to come up. We would like to be respectful of everyone's time.
I don't know if this is gonna be on that or not, but have you guys determined about whether we are going to consolidate with the city? Or does that come in a later meeting? And do we, as the Heights Water District people, do we get a chance to vote whether we want to consolidate? And I don't know if that's something for the.
I'll respond to that question. Thank you. All discussions with the city right now have indicated that the city wants the voters of the district to make the decision by a vote. That has been their remarks to me and the rest of the committee that has been meeting with them. I don't see no indication that will change. So that's the information I can provide there.
One more question. That's another meeting. It's a. I can be done.
The opportunity for questions was earlier.
Sorry. I didn't think it's part of the.
Okay, if you'd like to say something on the rate increase, please address that.
Well, I just was wondering if that's another meeting and I can.
Well, yes, all our meetings are publicly announced. If anything happens in that direction, which director
No problem.
Ewald, I think properly indicated with probably no news until this fall, if then, you will be informed. We have great press coverage, and so just stay tuned. I do not know what's going to happen.
We don't meet with them yet.
Change your order of business. We go
Stop.
right from order. I want to announce to the public, we had a rally last Friday. I'm an American Postal Workers Union member, 33 years at the United States Post Office. The president is having every state that would give up their voter lists, make the post office go through and determine that you do not get your ballot.
Ma'am, you're not on topic.
I'm not on topic, but it needs to be taken to task, especially for you, because you do not believe in voting by ballot. You think it's just too many Democrats will vote that way.
Don't touch her.
Yeah, don't touch me. I'm not doing anything.
If you're gonna.
Am I threatening? Do I look like I could be threatening?
No.
No, that's why you're here. I thought you were ready for a visit. You guys have the police.
Ma'am, I'm gonna have to.
I have a list here. If you guys want to get an email about this, swear to God, I had 2 more votes, totally
Ma'am,
not my union.
ma'am, if you'd like to gather a petition, get signatures and.
You have until July 2nd
Please.
to make comment on the post office.
Well,
And
no.
Mr.
I'm-
Trump.
Can I ask you to stop your comments so the public hearing can commence? Would you please do that?
President Trump,
Please hear, please.
President Trump.
No.
Come on.
President.
Okay. Now, I don't want people going back and forth. This.
No, we wouldn't
don't-
want that. We want to all get up our rights.
This is from.
So it's having nothing
You
to
want
this
you want to
point.
disrupt this meeting.
This is a water meeting, bring it up somewhere else.
People
No.
talk about-
Here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Recess.
Okay,
Until we clear the room.
I'm gonna ask for a show of hands. Would you like me to invite her to depart?
Yeah, I'm here for a water meeting, I'm not here for politics. Okay?
Politics is voting.
It's water.
Take a recess. Till.
Recess.
I make a motion for
Recess. It's gonna happen.
Okay. I'm gonna recess for 2 minutes so we can discuss this matter.
I'm not gonna discuss it unless with public.
I bet you.
You are not to be trusted.
Okay.
I think you're removed,
Yes, you can be if you're
Just
disrupted.
voted out.
Under Robert's
No, I
rules.
didn't. I didn't.
Okay.
I voted.
You don't want to leave.
If you don't want to step out, I will arrest you for
Not
criminal
even-
trespass to property right now.
What's your ID?
Promise that she's gonna remain quiet, the promise she made. If she doesn't keep her promise, I will ask them to remove her because you people, you are customers. Is there further comment on the water rate increase?
Yeah.
Please approach the podium. There was the lady. Please come up, ma'am.
I just wanted to say that I.
Yeah,
Please
please
come
come
up.
up and give your name.
So did you kind of sign up?
We have to follow certain protocols under state law, so please identify yourself.
I just wanted to say that I attended to listen to the water board meeting and I didn't come to hear your political views or for you to impede on my time to listen to what was going on. And that was very disrespectful to the rest of us. Thank you.
Is there a comment on the public?
Yeah, I just have one question, was, when what we're looking at in July first, is Matt Owens, Patricia Walters. Thank you.
Patricia Walters, thank you, ma'am, and your comments.
Yeah, we just basically on July first, it's a mass confusion to both my husband and myself. We followed along with our bills here and everything. What will we be looking at cost wise on the first of July after this? Who, if somebody, can somebody tell us?
Yes, the district staff can, if you come in the morning.
Be the ones that hear.
They can run an estimate based upon your previous usage.
Okay, all right, thank you.
They'd be happy to do that. Further comments on the water rating, please.
I was up here, Jim Lilly, I was up here before, and I apologize, I'm a little hard of hearing. And so when I asked what the water, our water rates were compared to Billings, you said that they're less, in Billings it's less.
So
And then kind of a general question. I don't know if you guys can answer it or not, but. Are you as a board kind of leaning towards consolidating with Billings?
I'm gonna offer my opinion. Thank you for your question. The board is a fiduciary for the customers. That means that we've got to make our best judgment on what's a responsible financial approach going forward. This board, all the members of this board, I believe, take their responsibility serious and not lightheartedly. The situation we're in right now is fact. Because we don't have a current water model that's based upon, current standards in terms of preparing that model. We don't have a capital improvement plan that we feel is accurate and ready to be relied on. We don't have a preliminary engineering review. There are a lot of issues that we need facts on between now, and we're in the process of getting those facts with the new engineering firm, our new rate case consultant, and getting those facts will take time. And once that becomes clear, then negotiations can occur. If it is not something that makes sense for the long term, for the city of Billings, they probably will not want consolidation. And if it is something that doesn't make sense for the district's customers in the long term, they will probably not want consolidation. So, this board isn't leaning in any direction at this point. That's my opinion. I think if anybody asked me on the street what I think, I'd say 50-50 is my guess today. Who knows? It depends on the facts, and we don't have the facts. Honest answer. Director Graves.
As he stated before, our president, that it would come to a vote of the ratepayers. The city wants it, and I understand that we want it. We want a vote of the ratepayers if we're to consolidate. Okay.
Further comments on the rate case?
This isn't about the rates. I've lived here 3 years, helping out a development and maintaining a JOB in State Washington. Why is the Heights separate from Billings on the billing system? I don't understand.
we don't have enough time to explain. Part of the heights is and part of the heights isn't.
Like a sketch of it? I mean, just explain.
We weren't part of the city
You wanna
limits. We were
explain
the,
on the map there?
Not city limits?
we weren't,
We were
we're
not.
not. We were the heights or the bench.
So,
In 83 when the sewer came in.
yeah,
Happen month.
I will give you a short history. Okay. The water quality for the residents of the Billings Bench, as it was called in the early 60s, was declining because they were generally small homes on small lots. With getting water from a well and then discharging it into a septic system. Well, you can't do that without contaminating the water that you're bringing up in your well. So the water quality was dropping. So the leadership in the Heights organized themselves. Went to the city and sought annexation. The city, for reasons I don't understand, looking back 60, 70 years into history, the people who were there at the time are all dead at this point, decided not to annex, but they said, we will sell you the water. So that's why the district was formed, in order to get good potable water to provide it to you. Frankly, my own opinion is that when the city brought sewer out in 87, 88, that would have been time for the district to dissolve and merge with the city, and then we wouldn't have the issue we are today. Because we didn't. We have a once in a generation chance to make that decision again, assuming it makes sense for both parties. This is like a due diligence process for any kind of merger. And both sides have to take a good look at what that advantages and disadvantages of that merger would be. but it was a historical mistake,
Okay.
in my opinion.
Stepchildren in this group,
I,
in the city. I mean, people are, when they say that.
many people share your opinion and I do too.
I'm just like, I say I live in the Heights and I'm like, oh, you live in the Heights. And I'm like, oh, you say that with such disdain, and I smack you. I mean, really.
Heights proud.
Let's, we do need to resolve a path forward on this rate increase, so I would like to try to return this.
Figure out what the hell goes on in Bill.
I will, your board is gonna be communicating with you on a quarterly basis beginning in July, so.
You'll post it on our website.
Okay, further comments on the rate increase? Pardon, Ming, you've already talked once. I want to give everybody else a chance first. Here we go. Yes.
So Jake with them, Jacob with them, 2103 Constellation Trail. I am a business owner in the Heights Water District. And I own 2 other stores outside of the Heights Water in City Water. I'm also a second, third generation Heights bench kid. So I understand a lot of this background. My question for you guys, I understand this is comment time and a question time. So the model that has not been done, the old model for the whole system. So what is the schedule for when engineer should get that model done in order to proceed with all the other steps in this process?
The engineer communicated with our general manager just this past week. We think it's a 4-month schedule.
Okay.
So that's July, August, September, October.
And so, I'm a mechanical engineer out of Bozo U, so I understand water. This is gonna be a 3D model that shows size, SketchUp. Should hopefully foresee seeing pressure drops across areas to hopefully find leaks in the future and show maybe age of pipes on a 3D.
Our GIS system has data on aging and sizing. The model will not detect leaks. It predicts demand.
Okay.
And that's what we're after, is trying to supply, meet the demand for water. The critical thing is that hot day in the summer. You've got a lot of demand going on.
Mm-hmm.
Your tanks have been drawn down because of everybody watering their lawn. And then a fire event occurs.
Yeah.
That's what can put stress on the system, because if your pressure in the lines drops too low, then the water can become contaminated. So that's what you're trying to avoid by properly designing the water system to meet the fire flows on the peak day.
Thank you.
Further comment on the water rate increase? Seeing none, I'm gonna call the hearing to a close, and we will move to item number 8B, a presentation on the phase 2 of the water rate study by Mr. Chris Gonzalez.
I don't, but I'll go off the top of my head. No, I didn't. I sent a proposal and thought we were gonna have to question on that, but I can tell you what the basic elements of it involved. Please do. All right. So, phase 2.
Let's wait till the room clears. If you have conversation you wish to engage it, I would please ask you to take it outside. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You bet, sir.
Not sucking up here, just want to say, listening to all this feedback. And you guys don't get paid, you're volunteers, everybody's pretty critical of you. I just wanna say thanks for your time and volunteering and I know you're all doing your best, so, let's say thank you.
Just for the record, we're not 100% volunteers, we get $100 a month.
I heard those.
And Frank's down.
We always try to.
$2.98 an hour now, yeah.
Okay.
94.3% more.
So, I mean,
All right,
one guy.
Thank you, though.
Thank
Okay.
you.
so.
Mr. Gonzalez, tell us what's coming.
Sure. So I prepared a proposal for the district and it included several elements that build on the work that I presented. One of those elements is a customer class review or audit, whatever we want to call it, or basically looking at the billing data and making sure that customers are classified. And the reason that this came up is because originally we were asked to develop a rate scenario where non-residential commercial and multifamily customers that are currently in the same class were split into rate classes. And so to do that, we had to go and look at the detailed billing records and say, okay, well, what is the service address? And I kind of brute forced it using Google Maps, like, oh, that's in a mobile home park, so that must be multifamily or whatever. And so basically there were some accounts that in general, multifamily customers, if they're separately needed for irrigation, they have fairly consistent demand throughout the year. It's just people in apartments, cooking and bathing and all that other stuff. And so there were some accounts that didn't seem to fit that trend. There were ones that used 3-4 times the same amount of water in the summer that they would use in other ones. So that got us to thinking, are there some accounts that are not correctly categorized? So if there are super high peaking accounts, we want to make sure that, those are irrigation, if that's what it's being used for. And that way we can target that for, conservation. We can also recognize, President Esmond said, when you have that maximum day and who is contributing to those demands, that we're recovering a fair share of those costs. And so also looking at the residential class, so single family and multifamily, and making sure that if we are looking at condo units or townhouses, it's like we want to make sure we have a consistent policy for what class those customers in. Either they're all in single family or they're all in multifamily, but we don't have some that are currently non-residential and multifamily and others paying different rates of single family. So really making sure that that customer classification makes sense. And so we'll go through, look at some kind of summary level metrics for the accounts, try to identify outliers, work with staff to see, okay, well, what is this account actually? And see if there are any switches in customer classes that are warranted. And so that's that task. The next task, once we're sure that everybody are comfortable with everybody being in the right buckets or the right groups, we allocate that annual revenue requirement among customer class based on how they use the system. There are some costs that are, fixed costs that don't vary with, the amount of water somebody uses or, how much, what the meter size is, those everybody shares in equal. There are others where it's like, if you had no peaking in your system and you just had this kind of base level of demand, what would everybody's contribution of that? And then above that, you have peak capacity. Who is driving that peak demand? And that caused us to have to upsize our system by a factor of 2 or 3. And making sure that we can, allocate costs to them equitably and recover that. And then fire suppressors, to the extent that we're oversizing the system to convey fire flow, tanks and pipes and things. Who are the customers that are really requiring, 2, 3, 4 times the level of fire flow that a single family home requires? And so what we will end up doing is, consider looking at the system planning criteria, allocating the revenue requirement in detail. And figure out, here's our pie of $8 million, whatever it is. And here's how we allocate that single family, multifamily, commercial, and so forth. And then ultimately that will give us a basis for doing class specific rate increases rather than just saying everybody, has the same rate. Another element that came up is the system development. And I kind of we'll talk about that similarly. So ultimately, Montana law provides utilities with the flexibility of imposing charges on development to buy into the infrastructure. And ultimately, the district has had to make investments in the system to serve customers. And so ultimately, it's fair to ask them to pitch in, pay their share of that so that we can then reimburse the ratepayers for the investments that they've made. And so we have, industry methods of how do you calculate an equitable charge. And so we will look at the information that's available, especially the new capital improvement plans that's gonna be on the horizon. And make sure that the district charges are recovering a fair share of costs. And so then there's the system development fee update, and then the last element, I think, is the financial plan update. And so some of that is, we're gonna have a new capital improvement plan. To what extent do we need to be looking at the rate plan beyond 2027? And I mean, I think the district will be considering each year before they make the final decision. But to the extent that we can say, okay, well, now, our capital plan is twice what we thought it was going to be. Getting a plan that gets there, so we can communicate to people and set the expectations. It's like, this is what we think the increase will be, and hopefully be closer to reality than, we come back a year or two from now and it's like, okay, well, the increase is double what we said. Possibly. Trying to get our arms around that information and trying to use it to inform a thoughtful strategy for setting rates moving forward. And I think that those are, task meetings, but those are the major analytical tasks in phase 2. Are there any questions about that?
Questions from the board?
I have several. One, you did have an alternative rate structure for next year that started with the city rates and increased everything by 55%. So that's actually our cost. We're 55% above the cost of the city. Some of the rates are 800 times, or 8 times what the city pays. But the overall cost of our operation is 55% higher than the cost of the city. But for the proposal that you made, I've been working for 4 years, because my understanding is that state law requires that we set up a committee that includes developers before we do system development fees, and your plan doesn't include that. So I know there's some disagreement about whether or not that's a law. Certainly it's better practice. We have a lot of dissatisfaction from developers and realtors toward the district. So would this plan allow you to actually follow that process, rather, because you have down one meeting with the public, which is not
Yes.
adequate?
So that was the initial proposal, and based on kind of the understanding of how these things typically go. We can customize the process. I mean, ultimately, I had sent information to the board, all right, at least to Blaine, that I think passed it on to the board. But basically, the Missoula city attorney pointed at case law and statutes that say system development fees and impact fees are two different animals. And system development fees are within the authority of utilities to set rates and charges based on the cost of service. That doesn't mean that we can't have an advisory committee for system development fees. It doesn't mean we can't do that process. But yeah, I think if the board wants to go that way, I would need more input on like the meetings and the process to assume, and then I would need to add that into the meetings task.
Okay.
Further questions from the board? I have one. What causes the big cost in terms of oversizing, tanks, pumps, or transmission line is that, that summertime peak. The study you're going to do will be basically, if you have all the monthly water consumption by each meter, your first pass is is my understanding correct, that your first pass will be to pick out which meters which customer demonstrates that summertime peak in order to separate into appropriate classes.
So one thing, and we'll have to get in the data. We might end up having to go different directions depending on what we find. But my thought is, for each account, we can calculate things like, here's your winter average water consumption, and here is your summer, here's your maximum monthly, and look at those metrics and say, okay, this is what we typically see for the class. And then, like, for example, multifamily. You might say, their summer average demand is 5% more than their winter average. It's minimal. And then you have an account that uses 4 times the amount of water in the summer months. It's like, so that would be a clear out there. And that would make us question, okay, is that an irrigation account in a multifamily account's clothing? And then that's where I would, go to Blaine and say, can we get more information on what this actually is?
Director Gary, I think your hand was up first.
Thank you. Question for Chris. Your suggested rate structure as we set it up here, is that tending to move us to a more consistent? One of my questions on all again.
Oh, it's just one here.
Here. Are we moving towards being more fair to all classes with the rates that we have set this year? Because the following year, we were not, and we made a slight move with the exception of the lowest rate. They were not passed along what the rest of the group was.
Yeah, so I mean, if we're talking about the rates that I presented, or that with the exception of modifying the fire line charges, the rest of that kept the pie slices the same proportion. So it was not an issue of fairness, it was an issue of what is going to be enough to cover the bills in total.
My question on being fair. We're still heavy on the commercial end of it, picking up the maintenance of our system. To me, that is not fair. And I know we can't get the general residential rate boom right away, but we have to at least try to move in that direction by our base rates.
So absolutely, and so the cost of service analysis in phase 2 covers that.
Okay.
What we've done so far doesn't. And so what I stopped short with my explanation of that task. So ultimately, we will end up with, here's how the pie is currently sliced. Here's how the pie ought to be sliced based on the equitable cost. And then we have, okay, class specific rate increases. Now, obviously, we're not going to decrease somebody's rates by 20% to then increase them next year. So, nor are we going to increase someone else's rates by 50%. So what we'll end up doing is having a multi-year phasing plan. And so what we find, if somebody is overpaying, what we might do is we might freeze their rates at the current levels and let everybody else catch up. And we get to equity over time. Because the other thing is, I predict that we'll probably end up shifting costs toward irrigation. Do we want to increase irrigation rate by 50% and then people stop watering and then there's a big revenue issue? No. So some of it's like figuring out what is the direction and then taking reasonable steps in that direction.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Director Evil.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is to Chris also. So are we just gonna do residential rate increase this year, or are we doing on this proposal? Is that the one we're gonna follow? Because you're saying we're talking about the second deal, and when's that gonna come in?
Yeah, so what I talked about today is 27. Like, I'm not talking about change, phase 2 doesn't affect 27.
Okay, that was my
Yeah.
first question. Okay, here's my second question. Just because we're gonna raise everything by 24%. I think we might be really surprised on how the residential water usage is gonna more line up with the commercial usage, because people aren't gonna keep watering their grass 3 times a day. They're gonna maybe water 3 times a week. That's gonna make a big difference in revenue and water consumption both. So.
That's a very, yeah.
Good, that'll be a year from now when we do the second one, we're gonna have a better view of that big, and knowing that there's gonna be a 12% increase next year, so.
Yes. No, absolutely. And I mean, that's another kind of feather in the cap of let's maintain a reserve above kind of that policy we recommended while we're changing things around and saying like, oh yeah, customers cut their water consumption. Okay, we undersold by a few $100,000 or whatever it turns out to be. We can absorb that with that additional reserve and or make other decisions about how things go. I mean, another thing that we could do with the information is revisit how you recover costs from the meter charges versus the usage charges. I did not mess with that for the current round of analysis, but that is a policy question, like, if, especially consider, I mean, the billings cost, my understanding is that is volumetric, so you're paying per 1,000 gallons, so if there's a reduction in demand, there'll be a reduction in that cost. But that debt service is not changing if customers use less water. So, maybe it makes sense to, put more in the meter charges, and that is something we can talk about when we get to that next phase.
I'm gonna interrupt and just offer comment before I ask my question, and that is, the city's meter charges aren't quite low compared to ours. The reason you have higher meter charges is to provide you with, a steady revenue stream, because if you get a wet year and your sales drop, you still have operation, you still have help to pay. They haven't had to face that issue squarely up till now, because they've had the district charge is pretty steady and covers that need. So, from my perspective, their per meter rates are on the light side. From the standpoint of what they would be if we were not the customer. And I think their multifamily, the way it is structured, includes users that do provide summer peak demand, and with those that don't. And the next time they go through that process as a city customer, I'm gonna go there and say, I think that class needs to be split up by them, because I think they've got people in the same class that present different demand profiles, as do we. We need to move in the direction of getting ours fixed, and I think they do as well. That's my thought. So.
And to your point, I mean, the city's multifamily volume rate is higher than the commercial volume, which, in my opinion, doesn't really make sense. But I mean, if it's including peaking that shouldn't be there, then that would explain it.
Director Allen.
As a direct response to your comment on the meters, our fees for the residential meters at 3/4 inch are 274% higher than the city. But as we get up to the 1 inch, we're 344% higher, than 525% higher, then 345% higher, then 540% higher, then 629% higher. I think if all of our meter rates were at the same percentage higher, but there's the reason our bigger meters are so much higher is because we've been getting away with charging commercial and having them subsidize residential rates. I don't think that's supportable. Your initial recommendation to the district also included a single rate for commercial. Raft-Ellis has included a single rate for commercial. It was the board that set up tiers. We've got 3 people in the room who are business owners who cannot function under those tiers. As I've said, is Spin and Wash supposed to only offer dryers because their business is water? Can the breweries they need water to produce beer? The board did not decide. It was individuals, and my understanding was we were going to go to a single rate. And then you announced tonight for the first time that, oh no, we're going to keep charging Spin and Wash and all the breweries. And that hurts all of the residents, because if we don't have, it drives businesses that are functional and productive out of the district. They can't necessarily hold on to outrageous rates like this until we come up with something that's fair. What the residents have said over and over again in our neighborhood plan is that they want more sit-down restaurants. Sit-down restaurants have water is the basis. They wash dishes. If you're going to McDonald's, you just throw it on the street, because we pick up a lot of that. But I do not like how you've done commercial. I think it's completely unfair, and I think it's driven by the board, by members of the board, and not by the full board, and not discussed in public. And I think it sets us up for an arbitrary and capricious judgment
Director Ellis, when we get to that agenda item, you're free to make a motion to amend any rate proposal that we adopt.
Okay, I'm just telling you,
So please don't, he's talking, this presentation was on the next phase, which is proper cost allocation, which I support. And considering the fact that our contract was entered into by a board 30+ years ago. None of us were on it. I'm sure the directors at that time have all passed their greater reward, but the contract is still here. We're still obligated to honor it. And in order to provide our customers with water. So, I think it's, if we get another 18% bump, if that turns out to be the case, we may want to consider an interim change before next July, just in order to soften the next one. So let's return to questions on the presentation for the phase 2 study.
Can I just quickly address that? So phase 2 can address what you just said, and I do want to be clear, I did not recommend tiers for non-residential.
I know you didn't.
Yeah, I tell
And
everybody
that's-
who will listen.
And that's what I said. We should be following your recommendation.
Yeah, so having said that, I mean, and my understanding was the board decided to leave that alone because there was other stuff that was going to happen. Looking at multifamily versus non-residential. And so I think phase 2 will give us an opportunity to reopen that discussion.
I don't think the board has made a decision.
Okay.
Director, Ewald.
Again, for you, Chris, I guess we do have some 3-inch meters and maybe some 3-inch fire lines, and you got them lumped in with the 4-inch. Are you gonna make that separate? Like it
Yeah.
should be?
So the reason that I don't show 3-inch right now is because that isn't in your rate schedule and we didn't look at the unit cost and how to set it up. Phase 2, we'll be able to come up with charges based on the unit cost. So the customer cost will be, here's a charge per month for every account regardless of meter size. Fire suppression, here's a charge per meter based on the fire flow requirement of the land use type. So residential will pay one, commercial will pay another, irrigation won't pay that. The capacity components will be put into the portion that we recover through the meter charges will be based on meter size. So that will scale the meter size. But what I think getting to what Director Ellis brought up, that will probably dampen the increases as the meter size go up.
So you're saying that if we adopt this, those people that got a 3-inch meter are gonna pay the $188.50, or are you gonna adjust that in this initial one for this year?
What I'm saying is they will pay they'll pay based on what the district is currently doing. So if the district is charging them with a 4-inch meter, they will pay a 4-inch base rate. If they charge them as a 2-inch meter, I mean, we can try to come up with something, but we didn't get deep into what the differentials and the different meter charges should be. So I don't have that answer actually calculated out, but phase 2 could give us a way to get to that.
We have to get facts before we can take next steps. That's what this is about. So thank you for your presentation, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Presentations being done, I think the next item on the agenda is adoption of a resolution to increase our water rates on July 1. There was a grid handout, emailed out, I mean, what do we have? Mr. Olborn?
Handed to us as we walked in.
I don't have it. Where is it?
Should be right there. I'm bringing up a spreadsheet. I'll bring it to you. And I kind of have a spreadsheet to make out the rates. And what I am showing is this went out to 6,553 people, I believe, our addresses. This comparison rate, I added an extra column, the adopted rate. So you have the proposed rate. I separated it into 2 areas. You could take each group, but I envisioned when we did this on the intent, we just did the bulk rate first, and then we did all of the rates afterwards. So what I need you to do, and so what I'd recommend is we start with the bulk rate, take that separately. one of the questions, and that would, the proposed rate we published would increase from $7.09 to $8.79.
We're not gonna get into explanation until we have a motion.
Okay. All right, stop
You
that.
want a motion for the resolution?
I need a motion to adopt the resolution,
Then we can
and then amendments will be considered.
Yep.
What we're talking about, would be an attachment to a resolution.
I'll make the motion, we adopt the resolution number, there's no number on it. For inter water rates, proposed rates, the county water district bill inside Yellowstone County, Montana as follows. And then the sheet goes with it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Ewald, second by Erpenbach. Is there a discussion? Director Ellis.
I would like to make a,
Motion.
what do you call it? Yeah, motion to amend.
Yep.
And I'd like to remove the tiers for commercial and set a flat rate for commercial as recommended by both FCS and our prior rate consultant.
I need a number.
Yeah, that's,
Because he had alternatives at 656 and 648. If you
I'll-
make that motion, I'm gonna amend your motion.
I'll go with 648.
Is there a second?
Sorry, can I just make a quick comment? So 648 is if you have a separate multifamily class paying a higher rate. If you want to keep them together for now, 656 is the right.
Okay, so I'll modify my motion to 656.
Is there a second? Seeing that, I'm gonna offer an alternate amendment motion. I'm gonna move that we go to a single tier for non-residential commercial with 603 per gallon. That is, you take the city current rate for that classification times
55.
55%, it equals 6.03 per kilogallon. And at that rate, all but a very small number would get a decrease. I believe it's the current rate increase because we do not. The current rate structure, I think, is subject to legal attack as arbitrary and capricious because there was no documentation of the justification for those tiers. So they were chosen in an arbitrary fashion, I think. And I think that because our current, because of the rate shock that's gonna occur with this July 1 increase, I think we need to take steps to avoid adopting anything that I would consider to be arbitrary and capricious.
So
That's the purpose.
can I second your motion?
You may.
That's
Okay.
630 to 603.
603.
630 is what I come up with, the 55%.
I've got it on the board. You're just gonna go to flat for all tiers.
Correct.
And would that include resale and
That's non-residential.
that's just non-residential, commercial, non-residential, okay.
Well,
I ran the volume numbers, when I ran it, it was a impact of about 15,000 a month revenue reduction. Which in terms of a $1 million rate increase is relatively high.
But not minor, if it
was
was.
a hardest problem for certain customers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good move.
This is non-residential city. What's the one who wants to do it though?
So can we vote on your motion or?
There's been moved and seconded, but it's now's the point for discussion, Director Ellis. Or Ewald.
Okay. Why are there tiers in the first place? Make no revenue? That isn't why the tiers are put in. The tiers are put in for conservation. So I think not only residential people should have to conserve, I think. Non-residential, commercial, they should have to learn to conserve a little bit too. It's not they're on the same tier level. we're going 500,000 gallons. That's the reason for tiers, is for conservation. That's why they were put in. And once it gets put in, then the public entity goes, oh man, we can do that because we can make more revenue, because all we have to do is as the tiers go up, we keep adding more on the upper tiers. So it's a revenue generator, but the reason the tiers were put in is for conservation.
Further discussion?
Chris, move closer.
Well, I don't know, I mean, typically it's just you guys, I mean, I have thoughts if you want me to share them.
Director Perry, would you like to address a question to Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
That would follow proper protocol.
Okay, so,
Mr. Gonzalez, if we took the proposed rate from 0 to 10,000 at 586 for the non-residential, and then went to tier 3, which is 698, and took an average those two, you wanted to go down to get rid of those, you'd come out at 663 when you combine those three. So if you could answer that and give us an opinion on where we should actually be going.
okay, so I do want to clarify one thing about conservation and commercial. So residential, when we're talking about conservation, a lot of that is discretionary usage, like irrigation, car washing and stuff like that. When we get to commercial, assuming that we're separately metering for irrigation, and if not, I would recommend that. A lot of it is not as discretionary. So if somebody's running a laundromat and customers come in and use the water, I mean, is it discretionary for them to cut that water usage? And so, and the other complication is a lot of commercial businesses are tenants and they don't see their water bill directly and don't get those signals anyhow. And it's also harder to fit tiers to commercial properly. For residential, customers largely follow a similar pattern of using water. Businesses, it varies a lot more. Different meter sizes, different ways you're using water, and so it's harder to get a one size fits all approach. There are tiered commercial rates, but I tend to advocate for uniform. Or if you do want to encourage some degree of conservation, you can have a seasonal uniform. So during the summer, you have a higher volume rate, and off peak, then you have a lower volume rate. But otherwise, it doesn't scale with tiers. But that's kind of my thoughts on that topic. Going back to the question that you raised, I actually calculate, the challenge with averaging the rates, like taking a straight average of them, is that that's not how the usage actually fits in the tiers. Like that would work if you had equal usage in each tier, and you don't. So what I did was I calculated if you had based on the total revenue that from usage charges for non-residential, if you divide that by the non-residential usage, you get 656 per thousand, which is close to what you said, 63. But I would say if you're going for 650, if you want the uniform approach, I think that's the way to go. I would be concerned about going to $6 because I think there's going to be a bigger revenue impact. And or I would need to evaluate that before I express an opinion. Other than concerned about making sure that we're not setting ourselves up to not recover the revenue that we need.
Further discussion? Seeing that the motion on the floor is to amend the non-residential commercial rate to a single tier rate at the price of $6.03 a kilogallon. Will the secretary please go ahead and roll?
Director Ellis.
Yes.
Director Ewell.
No.
Director Urbanbach.
No.
Director Perry.
No.
Director Graves.
No.
President Esselstyn.
Yes. Fails. Any further motions to amend? Director Perry.
I would vote to alter that to $6.56,
Single tier.
single tier.
with the exception of 500,000 and over.
So what rate do you wanna put that on?
I guess that's not so bad where it's at 739. Then I think it's, you don't have to go through all those tiers, so. Yeah, single rate of 656
For all tiers?
for all tiers
Okay.
in the non-residential.
Once you said 500,000.
That's what, but then thinking where this is at 739.
It's gonna have this, okay.
Is that?
Now I'm confused, cause
That's what
I just heard the general manager say single tiers.
Right.
I saw head start, but now you were saying two tiers. One at 656 and another one at 739, which is
Right, it's gonna be single tier.
one tier at
One tier all
656.
the way through. Yep.
Okay. That has motion by Kerry, second by, good second, second by Urban. Is there discussion? I'm gonna support this because it's a little bit of proper direction, I think. More legally defensible, so that's my comment. Further discussion,
It's a sign. It's good.
let's call the roll.
Director Ellis.
Yes.
Director Ewald.
No.
Director Urbanbach.
Yes.
Director Carey.
Yes.
Director Graves.
Yes.
President Esmond.
Yes, motion passes 5-1. Okay, so. With that change. Does anybody else want to make any? Offer any amendments, or should we go to the action 1, action 2, action 3? Okay. I'd like a motion to adopt the bulk resale rate proposal. I was paid 709 to 879.
I'll make a motion to adopt this like it is. After we do it the year, we're on a change, we can change.
Second,
Second.
motion by Ewald, second by Urbanbach to adopt the book resale rate of directors. As you know, I'm in that business. It's a small number of customers. I have customarily and historically always recused myself from this vote because of potential perceived conflict of interest, and I will do so tonight. So all those in favor of adopting the motion to adopt the bulk resale rate indicate by saying aye.
Can I just ask a question? This shows that it's unchanged from last year. It's 503.
Look at the top of the.
No, you're on
Resale
billings.
Okay.
This is.
Oh, okay.
Got to get back to the other sheet. It's on the board here too. It's not the big numbers. That's billing.
Page 2 of the handout.
He's right up there on.
Okay, I knew that I wasn't cracking, so
Right,
thank you for letting me interrupt.
Important that everybody. So. Is everybody clear? We're gonna call the roll.
Director Ellis.
Yes.
Director Ewald.
Yes.
Director Urbanbach.
Yes.
Director Carey.
Yes.
Director Graves.
Yes.
President recused and not voting. Motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion to adopt action number 2? Residential monthly meter charges, residential usage charges, and non-residential commercial as amended.
And the water special fees as. Right. No.
We'll deal with both separately. Is there a motion?
I'll move to adopt the rates as modified by the last Motion.
Residential meter rates. Or the monthly meter charges, the residential charges and the non-residential commercial charge as amended.
Right.
To restate, is there a second?
And irrigation also is that.
Oh, and irrigation, yes. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by. Who made the motion?
And
By Ellis, second by Erpenbach. Discussion. Director Ewald.
thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make an amendment to it that we affix a fair value for that 3-inch meters. It can't be that tough to do, and it's not fair charging. We don't have like, what, 16 of them? is it?
16.
It's not fair charging them a 4-inch fee when they only got a 3-inch meter, and that can't be that difficult. So that's why I'd like to make an amendment to that motion that we set them a separate fee, just like everybody else meter size.
I'll second that.
You're gonna have to ballpark a number.
I can do it right now if you just give me a chance to.
Chris, what would a,
I'm gonna say, if you wanna keep it real simple, just take the average of the buyers around it.
What I'm doing,
Yeah.
2 and divide that by 2.
was a motion by Ellis, second by Erpenbach.
The original motion, amendment was me, Ellis.
Motion to amend by
There we go.
Ewald and Ellis.
Where's it? Oh, let me do it here. There's a middle number right there.
What is it?
145, 142.95. And what am I doing wrong?
So you gotta round that up to 142, 143 then, right?
Yeah, I gotta get this, let me, hold on here. My formula is doing something wacko, so. I mean. I'll be able to get in values. So that's where you're at, and then. Might be this.
Now you have to do the same thing with the fire.
Okay, so all the other rates would be,
It's just it. Yeah.
fire line bill. I'll get it.
I don't know if there's any fire lines there, 3-inch there might be, but we don't have the numbers for that, so. That can come next year.
Yeah.
But the meters, we know who's got meters.
Okay.
I think 143 is the number I came up with.
Yeah, 142.95.
Yeah.
What I came up with.
143 is
So
good.
thanks for checking me for consistency.
I think that 8-inch line, okay, it's now reverted.
Yeah.
9/17/6.
So all
Okay,
the
the
other,
motion before the committee. Is to add a proposed 3-inch meter size charge of 143 to this a month to the schedule.
Yep.
Everybody's clear on that? Okay, let's take a roll call vote. All in favor of that motion to amend indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed nay. Motion passes unanimously. And we return to the main motion to pass. The rates on meter charges, residential tier rates, the non-residential commercial block rate and the irrigation block rate.
and bulk.
Separate, page 3, separate.
Yes. Is there, is everybody clear on the motion? Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Okay, then let's go to the miscellaneous charges. Anybody?
Did you do the fire line?
We didn't do
fee?
fire line, because we didn't,
No, that's on the next page.
yeah,
That's what I'm doing now. So we are looking at fire line monthly charges, water special fees and charges.
and we need a fee for a 3-inch fire line.
Oh,
Will you do that one?
Christian for that.
You know, I mean, we might as well do the same thing, and I think phase 2, we can recalibrate that.
Yeah.
Right,
So we got 1073.
and 46.86. Well, they're calculating now with adoption of that
$23.80,
$24. 2380.
I got 2880, but let me try it one more time.
Add the two and divide by two, yeah, 28.
2880.
Okay,
I would move adoption of the fire line monthly charges as proposed.
With the addition,
With the addition of
a 3-inch fire line and 2880
yeah,
a month.
correct.
Is there discussion? So that was motion by Carrie, second by
I'll second.
Ellis. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Okay, special fees and charges. What is your pleasure, directors? Is there a motion?
Well, I'll just start it out. I would move adoption of the water special fees and charges. As proposed. As proposed. Second.
Motion by Carrie to adopt the water special fees and charges list, second by Ewald. Is there discussion? Director Ellis.
Well, I will vote for this, but I kind of feel like since all other charges are 55% above the city. And we have charges that are about the same as the city and some that are lower than the city, that's something that we need to look at for next year significantly, because all of our operation is much more expensive, so anything that's extra, we're basically is being subsidized by our other rates. So I don't know if we work on that or if that works.
I think that's part of the phase 2 study.
Right, but that's what I'm just.
Take in July. We've had some discussion.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that because I think it needs to be proportional to all the other rates, but for this year, it's fine to go ahead with the rates as proposed.
Thank you. Further discussion? Mr. Gonzalez?
I was just
I have
gonna.
a question for you. What would you like to say?
I just wanted to clarify the phase 2 scope as it is, as I provided it, does not include reviewing the miscellaneous charges. We can do that. Some of it could be, a few of them might be time and materials based, the ones that are sort of more revenue generating. Others might be doing some research and seeing what other systems charge, like some of the more regulatory fees. But that is a service we offer, and I could add that if there's interest.
There is for me.
Yeah.
We'll let you discuss that with
Yeah.
general manager and
Chris,
Director Perry.
question for Chris. Do you have a general time and material average for the United States or for this area that you could go off of? Because we really have no clue what, are we charging an hour or are we charging 15 minutes and making $180 and
Yeah.
you can do anything and
So ultimately, my understanding, and that we have others, in my company who have more experience with this directly than me, but my understanding is there are fees, there are two ways you can do it. One is you can do it time and materials, like if you're doing like providing some kind of service, you can, talk to staff, like, well, how much time does it take? We can come up with what is a fully loaded hourly rate that includes, direct cost, but also overhead. And we can say, okay, based on the cost of providing this service, this is what the fee should be. There are other fees where you don't, they're more regulatory in nature, like, like a meter disconnection fee or something. It's like, and those tend to be set more by policy than based directly on the cost of somebody going over to the house and turning the meter off. And so in those cases, we might do like a survey and say like, pick some, a few comparable jurisdictions and see what they charge and then use that to inform the choice. And I think, in the interest of having a study be reasonably cost, based, and the problem with the time materials approach is if you don't have good data on the time, then it's sort of garbage in, garbage out. So that's why it's like finding fees, or it's like this fee generates, 20% of the miscellaneous fee revenue. And so maybe let's take a closer look at the time involved in this. And then some of the other ones is like, do we need this fee? And if we do, just say it more based on power. Those are the approaches I've seen. I can't give you a US average though.
Question, Carrie?
Thank you, Mr. President. I had a question for the interim manager. In your area of expertise and going through the books and stuff, do we have any data on any of this stuff?
I mean, we ballparked it a little bit. I gave you, when we went through this, I looked at the rate of Lockwood and the rate of city of Billings, and we kind of put ourselves on it. We didn't do a rule like we did with the 55%. We could do that. And Josh has been around a long time, Simpson, our assistant city. And he helped me with.
We don't have any idea
Oh,
of what our labor is.
oh, well, some of it are on call, like we did $90 for after hours, and that's based upon our overtime. So it is tied into it, and there's some ballpark on this. I believe when they did this, they looked at some time and calibrated it all, not to the extent of a good study like they would do, but I imagine, these have been around a long time, and so. But when we adjusted them, we kind of rounded them up and kind of compared ourselves. But you're right, after some of the times we didn't move these like materially.
My second question would be then, if you're gonna go that route, how are you gonna know what we actually paid for it? If we don't have any data and are not having a service order saying we're going out and flushing or chlorinating or that we're putting up a hydrant meter, we got 3 guys going out there and they took a half hour, so that's an hour and a half. How can we justify that as being a legit?
Well, historically, I hope it was based upon an initial analysis.
See, I'm skeptical.
Well, I mean, certainly what we're talking about in the recommendation was to look at it more detail. And if that's the direction you want me to go in, then I will go in that direction and provide you better
Not the
data.
direction I want you to, it's what the board decides.
Yeah, but I mean, if the board, I'm speaking, if the board wants to go in that, we certainly could do some improvements to it. And I'm honest, it's kind of ballparking right now, but certainly we could do more analysis. We can include Chris's firm in it that's very good about doing that and come up with a lot better data and list some hours on it and our rates and stuff and give you a lot better data on it. Right now, it's just kind of a ballpark and a little bit of a raise on it. And, just for clarity, one of the fees is we didn't have before, which is the service law or the late fee, and that was what the 2 other jurisdictions, Lockwood and the city of Billings. So our proposal is to also add that new fee, which we didn't have before.
Directors, I'm gonna offer, my opinion. The reality is that, because of the paucity of hard data due to the failure of this district for a long period of time now to have any work tracking system in place. We have no idea how our employees are spending their time. None. We've expressed our desire to the interim general manager that we move in that direction. It's necessary. It needs to begin promptly. I want to make that statement on the record tonight. We can't keep kicking this can down the road. We have to have expectations of our staff. We heard from a member tonight that they want, that they feel abused because they didn't get a raise at this point. Once we get data, then we will consider one. But I'm not gonna be in favor of doing that until we get some accountability, with respect to the people that work in that job. We need to know where they're going, what they're doing, and how much time they're spending on it, so we know what's being accomplished. Because with increases that we have to look at our operation costs. Do we need the current staff that we have? Are we overstaffed? Are we understaffed? We don't have data to determine that at this point, and we need it. So that's my feeling. So can we move to a vote on adopting the water special fees and charges as proposed?
Including the system development fee in that too, in the next page. Back to that page.
Correct. That
Okay.
also would include the system development fees on the next page. Yeah. Thank you for the clarification. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passed. And I have a motion to adopt the full rate schedule. Components as amended.
I would so move, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Kerry, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Graves, for discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of adoption. The rates schedule in its entirety as amended indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion adopted. Members, I'm gonna make an announcement and then we are gonna move into executive session because your president has become aware of potential litigation I need to inform the board about. So, our next board meeting is scheduled right at this point for July 15th, 2026, at 6 p.m. Director. Mr. Oberon, I'd like you to end the recording and then I would like everybody to exit the room, except the board members.
I think there is one.